I just get a taste of it, that's it.
Yeah, that's fucking funny. Just a chick telling you about how a fucking nut makes you throw up.
December 1993.
It's like, oh, that's kind of not sexy.
The room is full with people.
Yeah, right? Like, shit, sometimes that shit don't be tasting like fucking candy and peaches, I'll tell you what.
Still want me to eat it, though?
Yeah, but shit be tasting. Tasting all types of interesting.
Children. The TV is switched on, and a video of Mortal Kombat springs to life. As the senator continues to speak, he describes the basis for the game.
Lick my coochie, that shit tastes like metal. Wonder why. What? Yeah, pennies, yeah. Probably just on your period, you nasty motherfucker.
So good that I don't want to try it no more.
Yeah, like, you ever just have something so good you just want to take one bite and then just save the rest for later?
Yeah, I'll come back for that.
Yeah, that was...
This idea is an evolution.
Bet your asshole tastes better.
Yeah. And that tastes like nothing. That's the fucking crazy part, bro.
Is that a...
Gotta eat a chick's ass and it tastes like fucking nothing, dude.
What that ass tastes like? Oh.
Tastes like skin.
Schnozberries.
It's like look in the back of your own hand.
Overseen by Albert Bandura. The aftermath of the study
just a little more wrinkles.
Children become violent when exposed to violent media. The experiments.
And just like in all the porno movies, you gotta punch your tongue in the fart box. You gotta make sure it goes.
Oh yeah, watch this. Uppercut.
Everybody was tongue fuck fighting.
Oh yeah, well I learned this one from a grandmaster that I trained with for 10 years in the mountains. How you doing? A little bit of butt to Oh man. We're gonna sit here and just keep talking about fucking eating ass, and then the Russian guy's gonna pop into the chat randomly.
Hey, you guys eat ass over
there? You eat ass too? You eat the babushka? Whatever the fuck you would.
Hey, my guy Finley Gluck have song about eating ass, no?
Yeah, what about heroin water? Heroin water, yes.
The white is doing the ass eating.
Yes.
Okay, here we go, my friend. Yo, fucking fucker.
Oh man, white people do it over there, man. I don't know, man. A black guy made it popular over here. Shout out Kevin Gates.
He's an ass, man.
That man's fucking early rap career was crazy, bro. That shit was just, you never knew what he was gonna say next.
In 1949,
God damn, bro. Eli can never just like pick a game to play. This man changes games like every 10 minutes, bro.
He got done in Vietnam.
Bro, and then he played a different game, and now he's on another game.
We should just do a review of his game history.
Originally posed by B.F. Skinner in his series of lectures in the 1940s.
Yeah, right? Just start posting YouTube videos revealing random people's game history. And if you can tell, this person's obviously a pervert.
If you don't know, now you know.
Motherfucker.
Is the copying of a poem's speech by
If you don't know, now you know. N-word.
And that's Nebraska.
Nebraska. No, I'm talking about New Jersey.
Hey, yo, there's a baby fucking whale over here.
It's a baby fucking whale.
You see this motherfucker? Hey, yo. There's a fucking blowhole on this guy over here.
Published his review of B.F. Skinner's verbal behaviour theories and criticised his 1957 book, Called Verbal Behaviour. Chomsky said that public conditioning alone does not explain the ability to learn language, and instead there is something more.
What, cat?
As if Skinner's theory was right, then to learn
No, I'm not okay, kitty. Why are you looking at me like that?
Mary Sheehan. The fuck you say to me?
In the same vein, Bandura set out to find that learned behaviours were from upward conditioning, i.e. from reward or punishment, or from imitation, i.e. watching another do something and copy it. One particular thing that fascinated Bandura was aggression. In social learning theory, three
Definitely
models
buy a
of
speaker
observational
system
learning
for this
are
shit one day.
presented. Live models, where a person is demonstrating the desired behaviour to a participant. Verbal instruction, where the individual describes the desired behaviour in detail and instructs the participant in how to engage in the behaviour. And symbolic, in which modelling occurs by means of the media, including movies, television, literature and radio. Stimuli can either be from real
Yeah, that's still
fictional
funny.
characters.
Get the whole fucking family down here.
Doctorate students Bandura set out to prove
You
this
Papa
theory.
Ciroli over
This
here.
resulted in the
Your mom.
1994 aggression. This experiment involved looking into the origins of antisocial behaviour
Your
in
mom.
and boys. Each boy and a matched
Shit was
control
crazy.
were given
Shit, dude, the other day I had this guy, he kept dropping videos for us to watch, right? And like, I feel like he was trying to make me a socialist by like slowly brainwashing me with all these videos he was dropping, dude. And I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's kind of, bro, kind of basically, bro, like. And then like they're flashing like all these like religious icons and everything, and I'm seeing like just like nothing but like it was. I'm not gonna lie, it was a lot of white people, but like I'm just sitting here like, god damn, bro.
I'm not as white as I look, alright?
Yeah, like I'm full-blooded native, bro. Like that's just like it's funny, but like it's a little scary. Like, you ever watch the Peaky Blinders?
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
You remember that the fascist dude, the Oswald guy? You know that was a real motherfucker?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was a real guy.
Yeah.
Apparently he was a real thing. Like the guy was showing me fucking
Billy Kimber, all them motherfuckers, they real.
he was showing me fucking like his actual speeches.
Yeah, I smoked some of that Billy Kimber though.
Yeah, right.
Pretty tight out. It's pretty tight.
Yeah, it's funny. That's an actual weed.
Garrison Way and all that.
Bro, like what the fuck?
And is intended to be used as a
Some
safe
fucking
way
gypsies
for a
over there,
child
bro.
to practice boxing, bouncing around and generally
Gypsy
playing
hustling,
with.
Jim.
Well,
I don't know how I feel about getting stabbed, bro. I'd rather get shot.
but unlikely to
Oh,
have
no,
a
they're
psychological
both
study.
Yeah, I can imagine they both eat abs.
I've been cut by a box cutter on the shot in the elbow
The
by
Bobo
like
Dole
22.
experiment would start
They
in
both suck. They've never
1961.
been like
But first,
penetrated by a
the
blade.
Bandura set out.
Yeah, like
Imagine you don't notice it until you come out.
yeah, and then
you just
nursery school.
ah, motherfucker.
yeah, then it all starts kicking in. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like fuck, dude.
For 2 months. 2 adults.
Like when I was a kid, we used to watch these fucked up videos online, dude.
And one female.
There was one video, it was like the Pain Olympics, right? You know what the Pain Olympics were?
People see how they can take the most pain, I guess.
Yeah, like dudes would like chop their balls off and dicks off, and like
Fucking dumb, bro.
if you the least amount of reaction you have, the more like
Better your score.
yeah, and like the more brutal it is.
Yeah, and the Russian judge is never impressed.
Yeah, but like you win like crazy amounts of money, but definitely nowhere near not enough money to
Yeah,
like
but at the cost of your fucking manhood.
some shit, bro. Like people were doing crazy. Like I was watching one, they were standing in the streets, right, and they were taking like blades and chains, like just different weapons, and they were like mutilating themselves standing in the street. So like one guy grabbed like these chains with these crescent blades, and he was swinging them and hitting his back with it, right? So like they would like stab his back and cut it up and shit, and like another guy like took like a fucking katana, right? This guy won. He walked into the middle. This guy was huge, bro, like fucking jacked as fuck, right? His back was like really thick and meaty. He pulled out a katana, right? And then he slashed his own back, bro. The one single slash and hit he did across his back went all the way down to his spine, bro. It was just like, good God, these guys are nuts, and the things people do for money is even fucking more bananas.
Now, experimenter conducted the study for all 72 children. The children were split up into 8 experimental groups of 6, with a control group of 24. Half the experimental subjects would be exposed to aggressive models, and half were exposed to models that were subdued and non-aggressive in their behaviour. These groups were further divided into male and female. Half the subjects that experienced the aggressive and non-aggressive models had same-sex models, whereas the others had an opposite-sex model. Each subject would be exposed to the scenario individually. This was to prevent the children from copying one another. The child and model would be brought into a playroom where they would be confronted by the Bobo clown doll. The child was seated in one corner filled with things such as stickers and stamps. The adult model sat in another corner with a toy set, a toy mallet, and an inflatable Bobo doll. Before leaving the room, the experimenter explained to the child that the toys in the adult corner were only for the adult to play with. In the aggressive scenario, the model would initially start playing with the Bobo doll. After a short while, the adult model would start to verbally and physically assault the doll. They would also use the mallet. After a period of 10 minutes, the experimenter came back into the room, dismissed the adult model, and took the child into another playroom. In the non-aggressive scenario, the Bobo doll was completely ignored and the model simply played with the other toys in the room for the 10 minutes, before being dismissed, and the child, like in a previous scenario, was taken to another playroom. The next part of the experiment involved the child being allowed to play in the second playroom with some toys. To create frustration, after around 2 minutes, the experimenter would tell the child they would have to put the toys down, because they were reserved for other children. They were told they could instead play with the toys in the experimental room. In the first room, with the Bobo doll, the child was allowed to play for 20 minutes, while an experimenter evaluated the child's play. The experimenter would record each time the child would initiate aggression in 4 ways. The first measure was based on physical acts, such as punching, kicking, sitting in the Bobo doll,
Yeah, that's a beer right now.
or tossing it
You're on break. I see that. I'm proud of you, man.
The second measure was any verbal aggression towards the doll.
I'm just prepping
especially
things, you
if
know.
It's a lot of
the third
work.
measure was the number of times the
Look,
child
man, look what they do though. I already got
other than hitting the
one
doll.
out for you.
And the
That's a
fourth
lot.
measure was each time.
Yeah, dude, that's hard, man. That's hard work, bro. I poke my fingers and everything.
Pandora's results were
You know what
not
I'm saying?
particularly surprising. The children who
Click my
experienced
fingers.
scenarios were way more aggressive in the playing with the Bobo doll. The results
Whatever,
also
man.
showed that if the model was of the same gender as the child,
It's not
it
whatever.
would be even more aggressive.
What is it?
The most aggressive were boys who had a male model who had shown aggression towards the Bobo doll. When compared between the two genders, males
Maybe it's
exhibited
Maybelline.
370 aggressive instances compared to 128 instances
It's my money and I need it
exhibited
now.
by females.
Well,
After the
JG
experiment,
Whitworth can't help you
Pandora
right now,
wanted to dive deeper, but it would take another 2
I don't think
years
they ever
before
could've.
the upgrade
Oh yeah, they were
was
going to. They were going to get you your money when you need it the most, man.
For his second experiment, Pandora set
Shit,
out
Eddie,
to
that buddy
see
does,
if
so we
the
can just
results
boot
would
tomorrow.
change if the children saw the
As
As
aggression
soon as
Are
those
you-
background tracks pass,
in the
dude.
form of a
Are
cartoon
you gonna call
or a
it?
film in
Are you going to
comparison
call
to a
fucking
live
JG
model.
Whitworth?
No.
Pandora also thought
Tell them
that maybe
877
the
cash
children
now,
would
bro.
experience a
They have our
cathartic
money and they
effect
know it.
by seeing the aggression through the medium of media, or
Fucking
with
douchebag.
watching the aggression.
Isn't that what JG
on
Wentworth
TV,
is like an
the same
Amscot thing?
response as a live model.
Like alone.
This time, the number of subjects was
Oh.
increased from 72 to 96. But like before, the
what that is?
divided into 3 groups. A live aggressive group,
That's stupid.
a pre-recorded model aggressive group, and a cartoon of a cat being aggressive to
They
the
used to go
Bobo
all
doll
out
group.
on those
There was
commercials.
also
Yeah,
a
the big Viking was shit.
Like
877
before,
cash.
some
No.
The original results from the 1961 study were used
JG
as a
Wentworth. 877 cash. No.
I used to have a dog that every time the commercial would come on,
Get fucking excited.
it would use its mind. It would start screeching and howling. It would do that to Family Guy's theme song, 2.5 Minute theme song, every JG Wentworth commercial, Andy Griffith, how he would whistle. You know, I can't whistle while I do it. It would start.
A third experiment in 1965 sought
He's like,
out
shut
to
this
find
shit up.
how
Yes.
conditioning could affect the results. This
You knew
time,
what was going on.
66
Like,
children,
you would
13
leave
boys
TV
and
on,
13
you would have to
girls
think
were
about what
used
comes
to
on TV next, change the
Again, 3
channels,
groups
dog
were
would
used,
fucking trip
which
out.
were again subdivided into gender. The first group would witness a
Little
modern
rat
display aggression towards the Federation, followed by a research of candle. The second group witnessed the same scripted scenario of aggression behaviours, but instead the model received a reprimand and was
Boppo?
of a role within the golf club. The third group served as
I haven't been paying
control.
attention. Apparently, this is some type of scientific experiment. I guess something about teaching kids bad behaviors or some fucking crazy shit. I don't know. Yeah, it's just. Oh, dude, I wanted to watch this with you. The traumatizing history of Animorphs. Remember how we be talking about that shit?
The children's or YA book series that gave you the most trauma. You know what I mean. The ones you love but still left you clutching your stuffed animals or beanie babies or whatever and staring wide-eyed up at your ceiling all night. Now, from Harry Potter to Watership Down, there are plenty of contenders, but let me tell you, there's one series that took this concept and absolutely ran with it, and I'm of course talking about none other than the Animorphs. This incredible series dominated the 90s and was practically a staple in every single bookstore, library,
Yeah,
and
I remember
scholastic
reading the
bookstore.
Bear one.
And pound for pound, it's
Weird-ass
probably
mermaid
hands
thing,
down
yeah.
one of the darkest and funniest series aimed at younger audiences from that era. Now,
I played
if
a
you
game.
read a couple of
I had a
people
game on my
quotes
Game Boy
way back
Color.
when, or if you could only just remember those unhinged
So, like, you could turn into a set amount of animals, but, like, what you had to do is you had to beat them in a fight so you could turn into them. So, like, each animal had its own power, so, like, if there was a crack in the wall, you could turn into a snake and crawl through the crack. So, like, what I would do is when I started that game, I would always, like, get a dog first, and then, like, try to get, like, a snake and a rat and stuff, so I could sneak around. And I would get into the zoo. Once I got into the zoo, I'd get, like, a hippo and an elephant and a lion and all the big shit, you know.
but also gloriously 90s covers, you might be surprised just how trauma-inducing this series actually was. Because, hey, it starts off simple enough, just kids who can morph into animals, but quickly pivots into the horrors of war, alien genocide, and PTSD. But also simultaneously really bizarre
I remember all
things like
that.
space
Yeah,
rocketry
like-
and ghosts. But it's also so much more than that. It's
I knew it had
grounded
something to do
in
with
deeply
aliens.
human themes, fascinating world building, and an unforgettable sense of dread mixed with adventure. And over the years, the fandom has remained fiercely dedicated, and there's even been some attempts to revitalize the series, along with some, let's say, interesting adaptations. So in this video, we'll explore its brutal high-stakes premise, its wild history, and the strange adaptations, and finally where everything stands today to discover whatever happened to the Animorphs. Hi everyone, my name is Otto, and welcome to Exits Examined. We'll be exploring series, franchises, and more after their prime time has seemingly
I wouldn't
come
want
an
to turn
end.
into
If
a
that sounds good to
housefly.
you, there's a like and subscribe
If you think
button
about
below,
that,
and
that's
I wanna
probably
give
gotta
an
be, like,
enormous
the
shout
most-
out to my first off.
Most
Alright, there's
pointless
a-
animal to turn into, because you die in a day. I mean, what are you gonna do? Just float around a fucking pile of shit?
I mean,
Mentioned
everybody that sees you
tons to
wants to
unpack
kill you.
with this series, and trying to explain Animorphs to the uninitiated, well, things can get complicated.
Yeah, that's the first
really
reaction,
fast,
give you a
but
bitch slap.
Let's start
Yeah,
at the
fuck
basics.
off, get outta
Animorphs
here.
is a book series written by
You even have a
Applegate
contraption
and
called a
husband of
fly
Michael Grant
swatter.
that absolutely
Yeah.
took the 90s by
Designed
storm.
to
It
slap
sold
you
over
with
35 million copies and became a staple of scholastic book fairs, and it was a must-have for any kid at the time. Now, on the surface, it's easy to see why.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
used to love
fun,
walking around the
action-packed
fly
adventure
swatter as a
series
kid,
about
smacking
kids who can turn
little
into
flies around the
animals to
house.
fight off an alien invasion, and that's some 90s catnip gold right there. But beneath all the cool morphine and sci-fi adventure, it's so much more than that. At its core, Animorphs is a war story. It's about morality and the cost of violence. Children lose limbs, make impossible decisions, and grapple with trauma, and it pushes far beyond what you'd expect from a typical kids series.
Yeah,
It's all
right.
messy, brilliant, and there's just nothing else quite like it. So what's actually going on here in the story? Honestly, it's hard to know where to
This
start
makes me wanna
because
go
the
and buy
series
all the
takes some
books now.
truly insane
Like, I read
twists
this
and
shit.
turns. But essentially, Animorphs is about an interstellar war between aliens,
I don't remember the books
PTSD,
being very
and of
thick
course,
either.
a group of
They were
idiot
fairly
teenagers with a
decent.
death wish.
Yeah,
Now,
I
the
like
story
that.
begins innocently
Like
enough,
150
just
or so.
5 teenagers walking through a construction site on a regular night. But any sense of normalcy is violently and viscerally ripped away when a literal alien spaceship crash lands in front of them. Out of the wreck emerges a dying space centaur prince, which, yes, that's a thing, who tells them 3 very bad pieces of news. 1, there's a galactic war going on. 2, the bad aliens are already on Earth and they're infesting human brains. And 3, these teenagers are now humanity's only hope. Oh, and before he dies, he grants them a final gift/curse to morph into any animal they touch. And by dies, I mean Visser 3, the big bad of the series, immediately and graphically shreds him in front of the kids' horrified eyes, with his cries of agony haunting the gang for the rest of their lives. So yeah, this series has gone from 0 to 100 real fast. And if you think things are going to slow down from here, well, I admire your optimism. So, speaking of tonal whiplash, this wild duality
I'll
of
turn into
normalcy
a cat.
versus brutality is always
Not
and
shit.
I can't help but wonder how many well-meaning parents picked up these books for kids thinking, oh, what a cute story about animal transformations, only to accidentally
So,
traumatize their
like,
children
is it
for the rest of their
stuck with
lives.
one
Even
animal,
within a single
or
book, the
Nah.
12
any
swings
animal
apart, things
on
off.
flip-flop?
I think that's sweet. It's a good question.
It's like touch a cat, you can be a cat. Come over here, pet Leia, you can be a dog.
Yeah, but
Go
you
over
can
to
only
Peach,
go
you can
to
be
the
a
last
parrot.
one you touched, basically. That'd be interesting. I don't know.
I don't know if you could like save a shapeshift.
You gotta read this. In the game, you could like have up to like 4 or 5 animals you could turn into, but after that you had to like pick and choose which ones you wanted to get rid of.
Often start low stakes, our core group of friends morphing into fun little animals, watching movies together, and pulling at our heartstrings. But by the end of the same book, there's full-on chaos with them getting into brutal fights. And when I say brutal, I mean absolutely metal. Our characters get shot at, pummeled, stabbed, and sometimes ripped apart in horrifying detail, with too many examples to even mention, but with the first one coming to mind when the gang morphs into ants and proceeds to get dismembered in horrifying detail by a rival colony of ants. So some of the more astute among you might wonder, how do these kids survive being maimed and physically shattered on a regular basis, which is a great question. But in order to answer that, we need to dig into what is even going on with the alien war and the bigger picture of the story. Because Animorphs isn't just some formulaic, episodic Saturday morning cartoon. This is a galaxy-spanning narrative epic, so buckle up because is about to get weird. The Animorph books are canonically mostly set in the 90s, but more importantly take place during a galaxy-spanning war between Centaur aliens, aka Andalites, and mind-controlling space slugs, aka the Yeerks. So who are these guys? Well, the Andalites are highly advanced, fiercely proud, and the creators of morphing technology, which allows living creatures to transform into any animal they touch. They really seem like the good guys at first, but like with everything in the series, it's not that simple. Then, on the other hand, there are the Yeerks. Oh boy, those gosh darn Yeerks. The Yeerks are a classic alien concept of the parasitic slug, being these tiny, frail creatures, but they more than make up for it with their ability to crawl into other beings' brains and take full control of their body, which is absolutely terrifying when you realize that when a Yeerk controls a host, the host mind is still alive and fully conscious. You're essentially a prisoner in your own body, screaming silently while the Yeerk controls everything you say and do, which, again, this is a kid series. Now, the Yeerks are just messing around with humans. They've already enslaved multiple races, with one of the most terrifying examples being the Ork-Bajir, a peaceful creatures turned into walking death machines by their Yeerk masters. They're basically armored shock troops with blades sprouting from their arms, legs, and tails. Now, it's important to note that some species willingly allied with the Yeerks, like the Taxons, which are giant centipede-like monsters with an insatiable hunger. Now, bringing this back to Earth, the Yeerks have already infiltrated a large portion of the human population, and anyone could be a controller, which is a human host with a Yeerk in their brain. So, your teacher could be a Yeerk. Cops, probably Yeerks. Even the President of the United States, well, don't worry, the series will get to that. And this paranoia creates an incredible tension throughout the series. The Animorphs can trust almost no one, although this is offset just a little by their morphine powers. Now, you can tell Applegate had an absolute blast writing Morphings. Each transformation is pure gold, with every animal feeling unique with its own instincts and priorities, and some of them are just so fun. When the gang morphs into animals, they kind of become the animal, so cats are really aloof, dolphins love to play, and red-tailed hawks love flying on thermals, which is where air rises due to heat. And that alone has become something of a meme in the community because one of the characters really, really likes thermals. But like with everything in the series, morphine is not just some breezy superhero-style power. Oh, no, no, no. It's a grotesque, visceral experience. The characters don't just change into animals, they feel their bones shatter and reform, skin warping, organs
That's
rearranging,
fucking
and
horrible.
although painless, the halfway point between humans and animals is often described as an absolute abomination. But the struggle isn't just physical, there's mental battles too. The first time you morph, you have to fight against the animal's instincts, and you could lose yourself entirely trapped in its mind. And this is a big problem because of the huge risk of morphine is that if you stay in a morph longer than, say, 2 hours, you're stuck forever as that animal. But on the plus side, every time you
It's
morph, your
crazy.
body is fully healed, which is how the animorphs survive getting maimed, eviscerated, and dismembered on a semi-regular basis. Now, our team of child soldiers uses battle morphs, which is basically like tigers and bears when they fight, but also use smaller morphs for espionage and reconnaissance, which is all extremely helpful in their brutal, no-holds-barred proxy war with themes of trauma, pain, and the horrors of conflict running throughout the entire series. And nowhere are these themes more powerfully explored than with the Animorphs themselves. So, who are they? Well, we got Jake, who is the group's natural but reluctant leader, and as the war drags on, he steps up, accepting the crushing weight of responsibility, but struggling to deal with the impossible decisions he's forced to make. Rachel, his cousin, on the other hand, embraces the violence, at least on the surface. She's beautiful, fierce, and often described as an Amazonian warrior, but as the series progresses, her addiction to combat and chaos becomes kind of disturbing. Tobias is a loner from the start, and early in the series, he stays in morph too long and gets stuck as a red-tailed Hulk forever. His story is kind of equal parts tragic and fascinating as he grapples with his new reality, and my guy really loves those thermals I was talking about earlier. Then we have Ax, short for Aximili Escruth Istil, and he is the lone Andalite. His perspective is a real highlight for the series, with his alien worldview making for some genuinely great moments. To blend in, he often morphs as human and quickly becomes obsessed with eating food, since Andalites don't have mouths, instead eating with their hooves, which, anyway, he quickly becomes addicted to cinnamon buns, which again has become a thing of being beauty. Marco is the team's critical thinker, and he's always smart and ready with a sarcastic quip. He initially doesn't want to fight the war because, understandably, he's terrified of leaving his depressed father alone after already losing his mother due to a freak accident, which, yeah, because this is the Animorphs, that plot point eventually gets super dark. Cassie is the group's moral compass. She's empathetic, highly skilled with morphine, and constantly wrestling with the ethical implications of the war. Now, what makes all of them so compelling is how they change over the course of the story. The Herculean task of saving the world against impossible odds completely and irrecoverably shatters their innocence. They grow and break, and their arcs are some of the most intense and believable I've ever seen in the children's series. Now, major spoiler warning for the next 5 to 8 minutes. Now, for most of the series, the Animorphs keep their identities and a mission a complete secret, even from their own families, because they can't tell who's a controller and who's not. So while they're going to school, attending gymnastics, or doing totally normal kid stuff, they're also fighting a war to save humanity. And if it's not already obvious, this isn't just some lighthearted Power Rangers scenario. Their lives slowly start to unravel as they desperately try to balance this impossible tightrope. Now, this is all exacerbated when the
This is
series
deep.
constantly puts them in excruciatingly difficult situations, both emotionally
damn.
and morally. Their friends and family sometimes get taken over by the Yeerks, leading to some devastating
The
consequences, and things go wrong,
I thought
sometimes
it got
horribly
taken over by
wrong
the
all the
Yeerkies.
time. In one book, Jake
Yeah, that
gets
was the
infested
slug,
by a
remember?
Yeerk, and the
Yeah,
group
the
realizes
Yeerk.
that the only way to free him is to starve the Yeerk out. So Jake has to endure 3 days of hearing the Yeerk rage, plead, and slowly die inside his own head, all while he's forced to listen to every single one of its morbid thoughts. And that's not even the only time something like this happens, since there's a whole sub-arc involving David, and oh my god, David is just an entirely other thing. He was basically brought onto the Animorphs because they had no choice, but to make an extremely long, multiple book-spanning story short, he betrays them, does some pretty horrendous things, and the gang is eventually forced to deal with him somehow, and they have a moral debate about if they should just, kill him, and instead decide to trap him forever as a rat, which doesn't make them killers, but G's just by the tiniest degree. And then there's an entire book where Tobias is trapped in a tiny cage being graphically tortured. He's hooked up to a machine that cycles between pain and euphoria until he's nearly driven insane. Even after he escapes, and yeah, I know I've said this a lot, but Kit used to be saying this, he's forever scarred by the experience. And the stress of these traumatizing events and fighting a secret war eventually breaks and changes the team. Cassie actually quits the Animorphs at one point because it's all just too much for her, and Jake and Rachel hit their breaking points more than once, struggling under the enormous pressure of leadership. And Tobias, well, he's stuck as a hawk, with this interesting subplot where he has confusing feelings for another female hawk. And there's even a scene where he succumbs to the hawk's instincts and eats a rat, feels pure joy, and immediately spirals into a psychotic breakdown because he thinks the bird is taking over. Charming stuff, right? Which again, this is a kid's book, by the way. So, by the end of the series, these aren't the same wide-eyed kids we met in the early books. They've been through it all. Their innocence is long gone, replaced with deep emotional scars that will stay with them throughout their entire lives. And you best believe that the ending escalates everything. Alright, so let me give you one of my favorite things, a wildly oversimplified summary of the story. For most of the Animorphs, the team is basically running a guerrilla war. They're sabotaging the Yeerks wherever they can, stalling for time, and hoping that the Andalites, their supposed cavalry, will show up and save the day. But of course, things slowly but surely go off the rails. Now, eventually, the Animorphs are forced to blow their cover. They have to reveal everything, their powers, the alien war, and the whole terrifying truth, first to their families and eventually the entire world. This, of course, sets off a chain reaction, leading to a near nuclear war between the US and China, and finally a full-scale hot conflict between Yeerks and the remaining uninfested humans. The team is forced to make new Animorphs to bolster their numbers, recruiting willing, disabled children who in turn into literal cannon fodder. So yes, disabled children cannon fodder is a thing in this book series.
Yeah, right.
The Animorphs end up bombing a Yeerk pool, which is a success. but results in
Well, I mean, they said it completely heals you when you transform and
Yeah,
stuff.
just
So,
imagine
like,
if it didn't, though.
right? Well, then, I mean, they would have died before they would got
Just
to
in
that
a-
point.
You know, fucking wheelchair paralyzed, waist down, turned into
Yeah.
a fucking dog. Now you're
Yeah.
one of them dragging it
They all
wheels.
would have been dead as long before then.
It sucked, dude.
Oh, bro. That, or you're just looking at a bunch of kids with like missing arms and legs.
Just like,
Telling
the
you, it's
destruction
alright,
of the
man.
Animorphs' hometown. And from there, the moral lines only get more and more blurred until they're basically non-existent. Jake
Motherfucker
becomes a
turned into a
cold,
dinosaur,
ruthless
though.
leader with almost no compassion left, and Rachel becomes a full-on killer. Every character you've grown to love is breaking, and not just by a little. They're morally
Damn.
gray at best and downright terrifying at worst. And then the final battle is brutal, dark, devastating, and a total gut punch. Victory comes, but at a horrific cost. Thousands of civilians, children, and soldiers are dead. And then the moment that probably haunted
children
millions
falling to
of
civilians.
wide-eyed, innocent readers was when the fan favorite Rachel sacrifices herself, and she dies after a violent and desperate battle, with the description of her final moments being absolutely heart-wrenching. Quote, "The human was silent. No begging, no pleading for life. At the end, acceptance came even to this strong, turbulent spirit. You said I could ask one more question. Did I make a difference? My life and my death? Was I worth it? Yes. You were brave, you were strong, you mattered. Yeah. Okay then. Okay. A small strand of space-time went dark and coiled into nothingness." End quote. The Yeerks are ultimately defeated, but at an enormous cost to humanity, the world, and of course our shattered heroes. And the final books are this raw, unflinching exploration of the necessity and futility of war. Every character is broken by the conclusion, and it's rare to see a YA series so fundamentally destroy its main cast with such brutal honesty. But that's probably a big reason why Animorphs continues to endure, because it doesn't really pull punches. It tackles incredibly mature adult themes head on, reminding us that some of the most impactful stories for kids are the ones that refuse to sugarcoat the truth. But if you thought Animorphs was done, it still had one last gut punch, a massive cliffhanger that seemed like the start of yet another war. And just to drive home the point of the series again, in the words of Applegate, quote, "Animorphs was always a war story. Wars don't end happily, not ever. Often relationships that were central during war dissolve during peace. Some people who were brave and fearless in war are unable to handle peace, feel disconnected and confused. always people die in wars, and always people are left shattered by the loss of loved ones, end quote. So as much as Animorphs hits you hard with its themes and story, I think another huge reason why it's so beloved is the world building. It's not just well thought out, it's packed with these weird, terrifying, and sometimes downright baffling elements, all while staying somewhat grounded in cool sci-fi concepts. You've got high-speed light travel, dinosaur morphine, which, yes, seriously, alternate timelines, and just a ton of other awesome stuff. And the best part is that a lot of these world-building elements tie directly into the story itself. Take, for instance, the slow reveal of Andalite society and how maybe, just maybe, they're not the shining paragons of virtue they make themselves out to be. We first get a hint of this when Axe performs this morning ritual where he points his own scorpion tail at his throat, chanting that he'd gladly sacrifice himself for his people. But then, as we dive deeper into Andalite culture, we realize that they're not exactly opposed to a bit of interplanetary genocide for the quote-unquote greater good. Then there's the Yeerk species. We get a deep dive into their hierarchy and political struggles, and what makes them stand out is that they're not just these mindless evil creatures. They have their own reasoning and insights that make them really empathetic. Quote, "Do you see this? This is what I am without a host body. Helpless, weak, blind. Do you see those flowers? You hate me for wanting that? You hate me because I won't spend my life swimming endlessly in a sea of sludge, while humans like you live in a world of indescribable beauty." End quote. And one of the most interesting is the Ellimist. Basically, for all intents and purposes, a god playing this long, complicated game with another powerful being called the Krayat, who is trying to destroy worlds while the Ellimist is trying to save them. But the catch is that they can't directly fight or they'll destroy entire sections of the universe. So instead they play proxy wars with their minions, with the Animorphs getting wrapped up in all of this and basically just being pawns in this galactic chessboard. There's also some wonderfully bizarre portions of world building, like the Chee, who were androids created by an advanced race of genius dogs. But because nothing in this universe stays happy for long, the Chee want to fight the Yeerk threat on Earth, so they go on a mission to break their pacifism, which is a thing. And this turns into a Doom-level scenario. Marco gets stabbed to death, which comes back, and then the Chee android brutally wipes out dozens of Portagear and controllers in such an intense manner that even Rachel, who's no stranger to violence, is moved to tears, and Udasco, let's say altogether, is traumatized for the rest of her life. For more weird world building, Broccoli was brought to Earth by aliens, and I could really just go on and on. And this incredible and often wild mix of ideas, heavy-hitting themes, and sci-fi concepts is doubly incredible when you realize that the Animorphs consist of 54 books published between 1996 and 2000, which is an absolutely mind-boggling 11 books per year, which is even more insane when you realize that Applegate was quite literally writing an entire other series called Everworlds at the same time. Now, this makes slightly more sense when you realize that a good portion of the Animorph books were written by those authors, although still outlined by Applegate. Now, talking about the books, the original Animorph covers are just absolutely iconic. And honestly, I think it's safe to say that these bizarrely awesome covers was probably the reason a lot of us picked up the books in the first place, just trying to understand WTF this is. And as a bonus, if you flip through the pages fast enough, you'd see a crudely animated flipbook effect of the transformation happening on the bottom corner of every page, which is such a fun little detail. As for the writing, each book switches up the point of view, so we get to see the world through the eyes of different characters every time, which keeps things fresh and lets us dive into each of their personalities in a unique way. Now, you might be wondering how this wild mix of animals, sci-fi, and war trauma came together, and it kind of makes more sense when you realize it wasn't just one person behind it all. It was actually a husband and wife writing team, with Applegate saying she wanted to write a series about animals, and Grant wanting to write a sci-fi story. So they just kind of used these two ideas together in a Frankenstein way, deciding that a science fiction premise was the best way to get kids into the heads of animals, which is nice and all, but also makes you wonder if making a war drama with PTSD and child soldiers was also the best way to do this. But I'm not arguing, because Animorphs holds up extremely well even as an adult reader, and this is probably one reason why the series' popularity exploded during the 90s. And it's hard to understate the massive success this series was, probably in no small part to the Scholastic book fairs, and since this was a Scholastic book, it had heavy marketing in TV and bookstores. So if all this talk of war and sci-fi has you feeling a little overwhelmed, let me cheer you up with something that's guaranteed to make anyone happy. Stickers. Seriously, who doesn't love stickers? And better yet, handcrafted,
It's an ad.
beautifully designed stickers of animals and cryptids by independent artists.
What the
While
fuck?
getting some seriously lovely stickers. So what actually makes us
Why don't you answer,
Now, if you
Aaron?
want the
Talk
real
to
order,
me.
Serious
you
right
clearly
now.
haven't been
Talk
paying
to
attention.
me.
Go ahead and dunk yourself
I'll
in
never
the
do
pool
this
because
shit.
Let me see the
Animorphs is
temperature of
strong.
dick.
We're talking about
Better be
54
dry.
books in the mainline series alone with
Better be in
different
the
arcs,
pants.
different writers,
Yes,
tones,
yes.
and subplots.
That's
It
what she's
sounds
saying, dude.
overwhelming at first, but the books
That's what
are
she's
pretty
messaging
short,
you right
so it's
now,
not
bro?
a huge
I
task.
bet.
It
I
looks
see
like
you
at first
online.
glance. And this all begs the
On the
question,
interwebs,
do you need to read
bitch.
every single
Over there
Animorphs
getting
book?
your orc
And this is a bit
massages.
tricky because
I see
each book
you.
does genuinely
Who the fuck
move
is
the plot
Kikachu
forward,
Princess?
even if it's
Or
just
whatever
by
the
an
fuck
inch.
that
But
shit was,
some
a
do it
Kaiju
much more
Princess,
meaningfully
yeah.
Who the fuck
than
is that
others.
bitch?
And the fact that a pretty significant chunk of them were written by ghostwriters, and well, it's complicated because some of
Really?
these,
Is it 'cause
not
I don't
all
have
of them,
pink hair?
mind you, but some definitely feel
Wait, because they don't have fucking tentacles? Are you serious?
Kids, and others like
No,
the
it's 'cause
auxiliary
your hair ain't
Animorphs,
pink.
your peace movement, and the
You didn't
whole
dye it the right
Indian
color?
aftermath could have used way more breathing room to really hit home. But given how much of a money printing juggernaut this series was at its peak, and it's honestly surprising we didn't end up with hundreds of books, and Scholastic didn't milk it until it was totally dry
I don't know,
and
man.
exhausted. And it's kind of a miracle we got.
Since being single now, I've realized now it's like it's fairly likely I might go over to a girl's house one day or whatever and see like a fucking shelf full of just fucking dragon dicks, tentacles and shit like that.
Yeah, dude.
Not such a
It's like,
satisfying, if not definitive
Yeah.
ending. Thankfully, there are fantastic
Okay.
guides out there.
Oh, that's
that
a
split the
hyena's
series into
dick?
Essential, recommended,
That's
and
scary.
skippable
Nice.
books, and I'll link a few.
Oh,
that's
below.
the female
If you're a
hyena's
diehard
dick.
Oh,
completionist
yeah,
and want to
tranny.
read the whole thing
Tranny
in
hyena.
chronological order, Seropedia has an excellent
Oh,
breakdown,
this
which
one
I'll
is
link
a,
below as
walrus,
well.
huh?
So speaking about the side books, because if the war, dismemberment, and time travel in the mainline series wasn't enough for you, don't worry, there's more. Actually, a whole lot more. And surprisingly, a lot of it is actually pretty tasteful additions worth reading, with some wild and sometimes horrifying backstory.
In the
First of
time
all,
of
we got the 4
dinosaurs.
Megamorph books, which are kind of like summer blockbustery style stories. Fun, but usually without lasting impacts on the story. Honestly, you probably could skip these entirely if you want to, but I'd be lying if I said they weren't fun. Tobias literally kills Hitler in one of them, yes, you heard that right, and somehow a book where one of the main characters kills Hitler is a side book and isn't even considered essential reading by most fans. And if that doesn't perfectly sum up how beautifully insane the series can be, I don't know what is.
And I like how they're all
That said,
Scholastic
the Megamorph
books.
books are great reads. Megamorph 2 is a fan favorite, and since all were written by Applegate herself, the quality tends to be a notch above some of the mainline books. But if you're going to read any of the side books, the
Fire.
Chronicles are probably the best bet.
AR
These books
reading.
really dive into the backstories of
remember
major
those
characters
I
and
Spy books?
alien
Yep.
factions,
They used
like
to
the
be on
Yurks
that
and the
fucking
mysterious
AR
godlike
shit.
Elemist. Some
That's
of the
so
information
stupid.
here might seem like
On
extra
page
fluff, but
5,
some of it is
she's
totally
on the-
mind-blowing, completely recontextualizing the main series when you go back for a reread. Now, as for the Elemist Chronicles,
There was no
honestly,
ruler on
I
page
originally
5?
thought this book wasn't really
Oh,
necessary.
shit, I lied.
I felt like he worked better as this mysterious cosmic force, but wow, it's actually totally worth it. This is Animorphs at its most hardcore sci-fi, blending concepts of fate, free will, and tapping some really cool
Read this
concepts
shit.
like psychology and theoretical physics. Now, finally, we have the Alternomorphs, which is
So
a
you like how I
weird,
made that
it's a
one a
two-book
little
spin-off
skinnier
series done
on
in a
that side,
choose-your-own
so it's
adventure
got a
style.
little-
You play as the
It's alright,
sixth
man.
Animorph making a life or
Practice at
death
it.
decisions.
Perfectly
Sometimes you
cylindrical.
win, sometimes you die, sometimes you get
You get
stuck
better.
forever in a morph,
Bro.
just like in the mainline books.
Need me
And
to
that
show
all
you how to
sounds
do it?
cool, right? Well,
Oh,
unfortunately, they're not great. The aliens are limited, and most of the stories are
Let me
just
learn
rehashes
from
of plot
the
from the
pro
series with
here.
you
Damn
selected
straight,
as a
dude.
character. They don't
I've
really
been
add
rolling
anything
blunts
to
for
the
a while,
overall
man.
story. But if you
Yeah.
were one of those kids who always fantasized about joining
Yeah,
the
I
Animorphs
figured you'd
team,
be better
these were
than
the
that.
closest
You always
get
learn
to
something,
living that
dude.
dream in true 90s
To me,
choose
I
your
can always
own
teach.
fashion. But
Like
if you
this
thought
little
the
end here,
Animorph books
I'd
were
cut down
done
the
and
decisions
dusted
to make it
after the
flush all
original
the way down
run,
to
well,
the
my
bud.
friend, in this age, anything that has made money will
You
never
know, it's
truly
teaching old
die.
dog new
And
tricks.
In 2011,
I'm
Scholastic
not
decided
done.
it was time to
Return
get
to
back
gender
into this morphine
specify
cash
my-
cow with a
my
re-release of the
bestiality.
series. This new edition featured exhibit covers and
BC
editions with some minor
Specify.
text updates to make the pop culture
Specify.
references that were sprinkled
trying to
throughout the original
specify
books
my
more
bestiality?
though the
Look,
core
see,
plots
dude,
and
see how there's
characters
weed
stay
there,
the same.
dude?
But I guess
All
something
that.
has to be said for those original,
No.
lore-tastic,
Alright,
sometimes
close that
nightmare-inducing
bitch.
book covers,
No.
because while the original ones
Alright,
weren't, the relaunch was
Close
quickly
it up.
stopped just after 7
Yeah.
books due to a lack of sales. Oh, and while we're talking about covers, the international version
And look at
deserves a
that.
quick shout-out
My
too.
tits
Some
already
of them
looking
are
better.
really interesting with the
Pitiful,
Japanese
bro.
editions as a real
Sexy.
standout.
Why does it look like a
Hand-drawn
little
and
baseball
absolutely
bat?
fascinating
It's
in their
supposed to.
own
It's
way,
not
and
supposed
really
to look
worth
like
checking
that.
out the different interpretations
Right
of the
there is
unhinged
supposed to
cover
be.
art.
No.
So you might be thinking,
And the rest
huge
of it can
fandom
be
and
whatever you
massive
want it to be,
success in the
dog.
90s, there had to
I can
be
make
a
it nice
mountain
and
of
straight
Italian
and
products
beautiful.
and
Look, dude, we
adaptations,
might
right?
just come
Well,
from
my
two
friend,
different
you
parts
win
of the
a
rolling
virtual Cinnabon
world.
because you're exactly
Nah, you
right.
come from
Animorphs spawned
fucking-
plenty,
Mine's
but the most
supposed to,
infamous was
like,
easily
you
the
want it to be as
1998
perfectly as
Animorphs
perfect
t-shirt.
as
And this
possible.
thing practically
Listen.
oozes 90s energy.
Grab me
Just
a regular-
listen to the intro song.
regular
Now,
cigar
it's
right
not
now.
really, good,
And hold
but
it up and tell me what you see
endearing.
on the end.
You have a
It's
soft
slightly
spot for
tapered.
shows. Now, I've
Not
got to give
fucking-
it
Slightly
credit.
tapered.
No, that ain't
Live action
slightly
Animal
tapered,
series,
bro.
which
That's
they
like
clearly
It's
did
slightly
not
tapered,
have
bro.
That's like
budget
your
for,
sphincter
well, any
fucking-
Most critically
fucking
animated
sealed
media
shut.
filmed
No, man,
books
that's
are
slightly tapered,
regularly
bro.
mauled, crushed, or otherwise brutalized. But even if the crew had money for a proper zoo's worth of critters, the logistics would have been a nightmare. But they tried. Of course, tried comes with trade-offs. For starters, they had to ditch or
Hey,
change
chat.
most of the elements.
Nobody's there.
Hey, chat, what do you prefer? Tight sphincter or somewhat open sphincter?
Budget at best. But worse
So
was
look at
that
that.
all
That thing's
just
like
felt
nice
watered
and
down.
beautiful,
The
right?
kids adequate to
And
bake
it's slightly
that the books
taper off
at the
were
tip.
totally
See, then, like, I
which
would spin
doesn't
it
make
around.
sense
I
because
wanna
you
get
the
rid of that
idea
little
in the
taper
TV
tip.
show, they would change
Yeah,
to
bro.
the
So you can eat all the
younger
bullshit?
audience.
I don't eat
That doesn't
bullshit.
make any
You
sense.
can eat all the
I just
bullshit.
eat ass.
Audience presumably already read the drama so they could
So you keep eating ass, bro?
But in hindsight,
I'm
it's hard
cool
to say
eating
now.
ass, bro.
The
I
show
don't eat
was
Scooby
working with a
snacks,
shoestring
man.
budget and probably existed mostly to sell more books.
I was just watching some
The series
Cuban
lasted
guy
13 seasons,
Who's
on
and
YouTube.
Nick
Two
Cage.
Ruby Fracks?
Many noted for special effects, but some of them are just
I was watching a fucking Cuban
There's also a book
rolling
titled,
Canagars.
The Stars of the Animals.
He didn't have it fucking slightly tapered at all.
And you better
It's
believe
a
that
cigar, dude.
Animorphs was
And-
all
Oh, it's not a Rillo.
Posters,
It's not.
t-shirts, calendars, student
Same thing.
planners,
Different.
even
Same-
if you
same
could
thing,
think it
You watch
probably
white guy roll it
existed.
too, and his
And
is
that's
slightly
not to
tapered at
forget
the tip.
whole
Oh, well,
trail of
fucking
90s
white
products.
suck.
Depends on how you roll it, dude.
White
There's different
suck.
skills.
KFC and
There's different
even
styles
traditional
and-
travel
Oh,
bags
no,
pizza.
yeah,
And
different
the
styles.
weirdest
Yeah, quite literally.
piece
There's like a
of
whole
merch
YouTube channels you can literally
Yeah,
click
I
on.
float
in the late
boats,
90s,
bro.
Hasbro decided to release Animorph toys under the Transformer brand because, hey, they both involve shapeshifting, right? But obviously, there are two different series, so big audiences found it kind of confusing. And also, the human forms.
Is that
of
why it's not
toys
tapered at
were
the
also
end?
kind of
Exactly.
different. Now, of course,
It
you
creates
can't
like a
talk about
natural
like
filter
tie-ins
for it,
without
man.
mentioning
Like,
games.
I'm
because
trying to think,
incredibly,
like,
Animorphs
inside the box,
jumped
but
on that
outside of
bandwagon, too.
Pandora,
We got
you know?
everything from simple jigsaw
Nah, what
puzzles
you
to
do is you
more
tape your
ambitious
shit.
original creations
Just
like board games
tip
and
No.
Invasion.
And nowhere else.
Players
No,
choose a morph
no,
and a
no.
race around the
Yep.
board trying to
No,
complete
we want it
missions.
to be
Each mission requires a dice roll
perfected
based on your
the way
morph
it comes
skill
out the
value. And
pack.
if you manage to win 3 missions,
There's
you
none-
can attempt the final showdown
it
with
don't
the
come
first
down
player
to
to
When
take
it
out
come
two
out the
players.
pack,
It's a
it's
fun
pretty
idea, but
pretty
kind of
tapered on the
weird
end.
It
and
don't come
you
down
think
to a
that the
toothpick,
game
though.
based on a series where teamwork is
Yeah.
kind of the
It
only
don't come out to a little
thing
tiny
you can
itty
do.
bitty.
Now the
like-
game's got a pretty
No matter how
good
much weight I put in it, it's gonna have a taper on the end.
There's a taper here.
Full transparency.
Even if I put a shit ton in. I mean, it may not be that small of a tape, but it's gonna be tapered
We also
no matter
got
what.
a card game, but naturally we got a whole slew of video games too, because
Why?
it was the late 90s and it had a pulse, there were crowded video games. We got Animorphs
Strange
Shattered
airflow,
Reality
brother.
in
And the
2000.
overall
It's a
aesthetic.
side-scrolling
This
platformer
is the
with
guy
a
that makes me have to
surprisingly
fucking.
creative
You're the
mix of
reason I have to
graphics
carry
and
the whole
settings.
goddamn
Also,
fucking
the
thing out in the
soundtracks
morning when I
are
open.
awesome.
Instead of
Play
just
a
carrying the
Jake,
ball
Marco,
and taking the
Rachel,
card at the
and
same
Cassie
time. Nope, I
each
gotta
with
take
their
multiple trips. I gotta
own
take multiple trips.
Most reviews you'll see for this.
So but I was like, oh, goddamn it, gotta carry these two fucking things out here.
Hey, I'm not
Walk
there.
all the
I'm
way
not
out
there
there.
tonight,
Ding,
so you
ding.
tell me. You tell me if they're in there when you go
They won't
in.
be.
So what's even
They
the
won't.
point of an
It'll be the two
game
balls
with
sitting on the
no
thing.
morph?
I think that's dumb.
And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk over there, I'm gonna grab both of them, right? I'm gonna put the keys in in the cart.
Ubisoft, and
One trip,
certainly
done.
kind of
Boom.
imagine a
Ba-boom.
budget
That's
Pokemon
not the way it
knockoff with
works,
color
man. How you
palette
like that,
so
Baba
bad
Goosh?
it kind of feels like an
Bobby!
Gameplay is
How you like that,
basically
Baba Doosh?
I don't like
animals
that.
and aliens
Oh, that's
and
gabagool.
turn-based combat
So what?
to earn Animorphs.
I don't think that makes proper sense.
Surprisingly
I played this
difficult,
game.
making it extremely hard to run from fights and an insane save system involving a system of passwords. We also got Animorphs Know the Secret in 2000, which is a
I mean, you
turn-based
carry 'em
tactical
out.
combat
I
adventure.
carry 'em
The
in.
graphics scream, we're doing the best we
Same
can
work,
with what
bro.
little we have.
No, bro, it's
God,
not.
that
Same
system
work.
is
I just woke up. I'm not
I'm trying to leave.
I just, well then what you should do is just take the bowls and become
No.
quicker, bro. And you don't have to carry them. It's easy.
Just take the sticks too, man.
Nah, bro, fuck that.
You know why I really started doing it? One night it was raining, and I was like, you know, I might as well just take the whole thing in. Like,
Simple but
it's raining.
undeniable
So I
classic.
took it
It's
in.
charm and honestly
Then I
good
just
for
started
the
taking
mix.
it in,
We also
right?
got
And then I
Hawk
heard
Quest,
Robert
which is a
bitch
flash
about
game
it
from
one
the official
time.
Animorphs website where you
So,
hope
yeah,
to buy a
I
safe
take 'em in
kit.
every
Heads up, I
fucking
could not
day.
even find a video.
I make
of
it.
it.
I gotta take
So
them out.
again,
And
if someone has
Eli.
played it, please let me know.
Yeah, man.
Robert
As
might
far as
bitch about it, but
mine
he's
is,
not the one doing
unfortunately,
it.
Nothing,
You know, he's happy
nothing
doing
I
that.
could see on the
He ain't
horizon,
gonna
which
do
is a
it.
real shame because of my imagination.
Next day you're there with him, walking around without it,
that
dude.
morphine could do.
It's like, I'm gonna walk out
Maybe
there
something
and
like a XCOM
Just
game,
do
or
everything
even a
else.
Metroidvania,
Just like
utilizing the
Bruce and all them brothers and
I don't
Nowhere
know,
to Be
it's just a
Found,
shame
bro.
that no one has at least tried. because there's
Well,
definitely some
all I
potential
had
here.
Devin
So
do was
surely
try
if we got all these video
to blow
games,
out
you
the
must
parking
have
lot,
gotten
and
the
that
movie,
was a
right?
terrible waste
Well,
of time,
you
because
best
it looked
believe
like
that they
shit.
tried. For years,
I had no idea what he
rumors
did,
swirled
but I
about a
heard the
potential
blower
Animorphs
going.
movie. Whispers of
Probably
an
just
adaptation
stumbled
popped up as
around.
early as the mid-2010s with reports suggesting that
Like I
Universal
had all
Pictures
the,
was
because
developing a
guess
film
what? I
about
took him
Oh,
out there
yeah.
this morning.
Then
I
in
opened this
2020,
morning
the
and I closed, so
I'm
I
gonna sit
never
there and I
knew.
blow all that shit out, right?
Confirmed that Scholastic Entertainment
It don't
and
take
Picture
necessarily
Start
that long.
were teaming up to make it
Because,
happen,
like,
and
I'll have enough
fans
time
were
to
cautiously optimistic,
do the
especially
prep,
when
you'll
Animorphs
open
authors,
up
applicants, and
all
grants
that
were said to be involved.
glow,
Unfortunately, that
and then I'll still have like 10 minutes or
October
so
2020,
to go
Grant
sit and
announced
smoke
on
a
Twitter that
cigarette
he
or
and
You literally
applicants
had
were
an hour
stepping away
to
from the
just
project due to
make the
their
allotment
budgetary
good.
differences. He
Sometimes
later
I'll even have
elaborated that
15 minutes
basically
to
the
just
producers didn't
stand
want to
around
hear
and
what
chill
they
for a
said,
second.
and their script
And
outline
that's
was
making
not
sure I also
respecting
shut
the
off the
original
little
story,
handles
so
and
they
all
left
those
the project.
shit.
And
I
the
did all
project
that shit.
itself has been quiet
I just
ever
wanted him to make it
since,
look
so
good.
probably stuck in development.
I was like, hey, you know, over
Maybe
there by
it
the
could make
Bay
a
Area,
return,
can you
strengthen
blow all
things
them
and
leaves
actions.
out
But
and then
many
come through
people
the
argue
parking
that
lot and blow
Animorphs would
everything to
work
the
better
middle
as
and
a
kind of
mature
work it out?
animated series.
Them
anyway.
fucked up
And
ass
honestly,
can do
I'm
something,
kind
bro.
of with it.
Well, I
The
tried to make it to
darkness
where that
on
was
that
it. I
application
figured if I
could
gave you
definitely
one
better
task
capture
for
the
the time,
tone of
you
the book.
do
Something like
good.
Cyberpunk
But he
Edge
did
Runner was
decent at
so
loading.
cool.
You know, I
Actually,
can't complain
we did
about that.
kind of
You
get
know,
something like this, or
About
at least
damn
close
time.
to it.
You know,
with
I
the
didn't have to
graphic
go over there every
novels. Now,
5
these
minutes.
were originally
You know.
published in 2020, and
Or
as
somebody
of now,
stops
just
doing
a
the
few
damn cloth
volumes have
top
been
retract.
released, with the capture being the latest installment
Fucking
as
Eli
of this
doesn't
video.
know what
So,
buttons he's
are they
pushing
worth it?
either.
Well,
Yeah,
you
I
want to hear
realize
mixed
that.
things about this.
Robert don't know
Some
what
people
buttons he's
criticizing the
pushing either.
similarity in character.
Like, when
appearances,
Bruce does
and
that
other
buff
people
and dry
saying
shit,
that
I'm
it
like,
isn't
dude, this is gonna
sanitized
confuse
compared
some
to the
people.
mainline books. But hey, if it helps younger kids get into the
You get all
series,
these
I'm
dumbasses
all
trying
for
to tell
Now,
you
it's actually
it ain't
unclear
working.
on whether
No, it
or
is
not
working.
this will continue.
We
This
just
is
can't let it work
calories.
for you
possibly
motherfucker
being
because
the
it
last,
works
but
too
we're
well.
just going
It
to
wants to
see.
hold on to
But
you.
all in all, it's just great that there still is official Animorphs content coming out, even if there's no new mainline books or movies on the
And it's
horizon.
like when they start
Now,
trying to
if
talk
all
to me
these
about it, I
adaptations
know
still don't
exactly
quite
what they're going to
scratch
say.
your
So I'm
itch,
already like,
don't worry, the fandom has got you.
so let me tell you.
Wow, it's seriously
We
amazing
changed the material,
just how much
altered
love
the
this
weight,
series
the
gets
balance of the
even
air pressure,
decades
hydraulic
later.
pressure.
You can really tell that a whole
might not-
generation grew up with these books and
It'll
poured their
touch the
creative
little
energy
card,
right
but it
back
might
into
touch
the
you
community.
into the
We've
fucking
got it
ground.
on
You see what
Animorph
I'm saying?
tattoos,
We gotta make
beautifully
sure,
created
like, the
fan
pressure's
art,
right.
fan-made
Just keep
RPG
crushing it
manuals,
down,
which
buddy.
I'll link a great one
Your
below,
3500
and
truck
of course,
ain't gonna take
the memes
that
are
going all the
you.
way down.
The dedication is real,
Your
and
shock's
one look
everything.
at
You're
the
gonna touch the
massive
fucking
Animorph
concrete,
subreddit, and you'll see an endless supply of fan discussions, nostalgic deep dives, and creative projects that
I'm
keep
tired
the
of hearing
story
about white
Still already.
There's
Well, I
also
pay
no
for it.
shortage of articles,
Yeah.
videos, and retrospectives
So I'm paying for
that
something I ain't
explore the
getting.
many
Well,
layers of what
would you
makes
rather
Animorphs
that or your
unforgettable.
wiper
It's all
blade
heartwarming stuff, honestly.
your
And
fucking
for a series about
grills
it
ripped
sure
out?
I had quite a
does
bit of
lot
people with the
joy
wiper
and
blades getting
bonding
ripped out.
that
That's
maybe
really all we're
is
doing,
trauma
'cause
bonding. So So the question is why?
Big
Why
difference
did
is
this
the
weird,
flappiness
brutal
to it, and
series
I'm
about
pretty
a
sure
secret
Bruce and I
galactic
put it
war
on back
complete with
because he
PTSD,
knows what he's
soldiers, and
doing.
brain slugs,
Why would
not
the
only
opening
explode
flap
the 90s, but
come
stick around in
onto
the
the
cultural
car?
zeitgeist for so long? By all logic,
Wouldn't it be
Animorphs
against
probably
it so
shouldn't
it's a
have succeeded.
solid
It's
surface
too dark, too
without
heavy,
something
too different, and yet there's just nothing
get
else
stuck
quite like
on?
it. Now, I personally think that the
What
series
do I know?
was because
That's
it
funny.
broke every
But
rule about
what do
how
I
the
know?
studio was supposed to be.
Apparently
These
not
books
shit, dude.
didn't shy shy away from hard truths. They tackled war, trauma, and
Bruce is the
moral
boss.
You know what I know,
ways
dude.
that
Fuck
were
all, dude.
honest, messy, and brutal,
Apparently.
all without ever
Just like
talking down to
whatever
their
Bruce
opponents.
say, man,
It was
he's
raw
got it,
and
dude.
terrifying,
You just
but also
got good ideas,
human.
bro.
And for
You're
kids
dumb, bro.
grappling with
Mhm.
growing up with dreams
Just the guy with ideas at work.
Don't listen to that guy. He likes to think he knows what he's doing.
He's only fixed everything here, but fuck that guy.
He don't know shit.
Yeah, you guy over there, fuck you.
Hey, that new guy's better than Aaron.
Hey,
Employee of the month, Devin.
All this passion.
Yeah, Devin, employee of the month. Aaron, you suck. He's better than
He's
you.
got passion coming out of his ass.
Don't even know if it's his ass or if it's a hole, bro. What is this, man?
I don't know what I'm doing.
Bro, that smells better than my ass.
So I didn't even do.
I'm
gonna laugh if I get a cake.
Shout out to the brilliant user on Reddit for helping me fact check as well. No
You know how
shout
funny
out
that would be?
ever without
It'd be funny
mentioning
'cause
my
you
patrons
won't
who
even have cake to have.
a lot. You guys are
Throw
seriously
fit, I
the
will
best.
smash
If
it.
you want to find out more
Yeah.
ways to support me, you can check my Patreon.
Yeah, I'm better than everybody. He broke rules to get there. I didn't break rules to get to my record.
It's always
You bullshit. I didn't break
How
the
many
rules.
how many one roller cars went down the track? If it was more than 3, your record's void. And I was pushing roller button. I didn't have automatic fire in my day.
In that magical, far off, and strange time
Stipulations,
of the early
cause, effect.
2000s,
Where's my
a lot
cake?
of
Why can't it
books
say
were
Archie and Aaron?
YA
Huh?
and younger
Huh?
reader
I'm talking about for my birthday,
But if you
dude.
look at the big
Oh.
names, fantasy.
Oh, you get a cake for your
That's
birthday?
what I'm saying, dude. I'm alive. I get a cake for my birthday.
I hope you
However,
do.
they were
No, my birthday's first.
The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna look. I'm gonna call you. Because chances are we're not gonna be on the same shit. I'm gonna call you. And be like, "It's why." What day is the 26th on? Is it a day we work together with the fucking?
Being about as controversial as they come, to the point where his use has sparked massive boycotts of his works.
Yeah, I'll
Now, like
get
a lot
you
of
a cake
people,
my
I was
damn
obsessed
self.
with the first book growing up. I must have read
Just so
it
I
at
can
least
eat it in
4
front of
times, then devoured
How
it.
can you take my name and eat it in front of you?
Happy birthday, Archie. Motherfucker. Yeah. What's your favorite cake? Don't matter.
Joke's on you. I don't like cake. I get tarts, motherfucker. Ah.
Or like the little, fruit one?
Yeah, like European things, yeah.
A Hollywood adaptation
Well, like,
with its
they're
own
different
fair
things. I've
share
had
of
a fruit
drama that
tart.
came at
Yeah,
once.
I got
So
fruit
in
ones.
this video,
Like,
I've
they got,
dived
like, the
into
kiwi
its
on
wild
it.
history, its unique
Czech Republic?
ideas, its mini twist and
It's got
turns,
chocolate
the
on the bottom.
history of
Yeah.
books and
Just
and
fire.
finally
No,
taking a
you
look
ain't
at
lying.
where everything is at today.
I spent like 70 bucks on my baby mama's baby shower.
Hi everyone, my name
It
is
was like
Otto
the best
and
fucking
welcome
thing I
to
ever had in my
Exits
life.
Exams.
It was like a
We will be
custard
exploring
thing,
series,
and then there was like that
franchises,
chocolate at the bottom, with like a graham cracker, and then it had like all the fruit you can think of that was good, and dragon fruit, and passion this, and like it was fucking good as shit.
Yeah, dude. I like tarts, dude. Fucking tarts and tiramisu, man. That's just fire.
Oh no, you lost me at tiramisu. You want to know a funny story about tiramisu? So,
Not all tiramisu's created equal.
so look, you know,
Like if you get me tiramisu from like Publix or some shit, that's gonna be trash. It's gonna be sour and nasty.
I'm gonna tell you a story, real fast one. Before I was like really into knowing shit, I thought I was bougie, right? I took my baby mama when we first got together. We went on a nice little date thing. I went to a fancy seafood restaurant. They brought out a dessert display. So like they come by with them on a fucking platter and they tell you about it. And I saw tiramisu. That shit looked delicious as fuck. I'll take a tiramisu. $22, like gotta be good. Comes out.
It's a coffee cake.
I had no idea that there was ground fucking coffee in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do coffee.
Well, like the crazy expensive shit has ground coffee. The cheaper stuff doesn't. I get the cheaper shit. 'Cause
I can deal with coffee cake,
I'm not very expensive.
but when that I went for the top layer, it was like normal cake, a little bit of like icing on it, like it was good. Then when I went through it, I was like, oh shit, there's chocolate.
I love coffee.
And she, and my baby mama, what's wrong? I said, what the fuck's a tiramisu? Oh, it's got coffee in it.
Mm-hmm.
What you mean by coffee? They're not like
The
oat.
first time I bit into tiramisu,
What the fuck, dude?
I was in love, dude.
I had no idea.
I was at a country club performing for a bunch of rich white people, and dude, they had like just snacks and shit for us for the performers. I walked over, I took a bite, I was like, holy shit, what is this? Why does it taste like coffee and it's cake? And my mom's like, it's tiramisu. I've never had no tiramisu with actual coffee grounds in it. That sounds a little weird to me.
It
Like,
was
$22 for a slice to me is crazy because normally what I do,
It was like,
what I do is I go to my baby mom's because she normally works at restaurants that be serving tiramisu. And I'm
Yeah.
like, here's $30. Get me the red box. I want the whole tray. The red or the blue box. Like, so that's basically like when I worked at restaurants, that was the color of boxes they come in. And usually for my birthday, what I like to do for like a few days is sit down and eat that whole tray of tiramisu, and then I won't touch the shit again for the whole year.
hell yeah.
Yeah, and like I'll eat it till I'm sick of it, and I fucking hate it, and then I dream about it all year long.
Tiramisu.
Bro, I love tiramisu, bro. That's just
Got me fucked up. I like carrot cake.
carrot cake's good too.
I like German chocolate cake.
I like fresh carrot cake.
with like the real carrots and shit.
Yeah, the ground, the slices and peels
Yeah.
and.
Do you like it when they put raisins in it?
I've never had one raisins.
Really?
I'm not really a big fan of raisins though.
That's why I was asking. I remember you saying that a while ago, but I fuck with raisins.
I fucking love grapes, but raisins, if I have to eat them, I'll eat them. But I'm not like going out of my way to buy raisins.
Oh hell no! I don't know. Like you buying raisins, like they're byproduct in most shit.
Mhm.
Raisin bran, no, I'm straight.
Yeah, like I'm good at raisin bran and all that.
Brand's alright. Just brand, baby.
If you're neither a hunchback nor a fishwife, then go read bloody hell already, damn it!
Hey, bruh.
Alright.
Guess what,
so,
though? Tell me why we both off on your
This
birthday.
is just insane. So
What day is it on?
Wednesday, dog.
one of the bros sent me
Oh, word.
this that apparently a dude who has
Hey.
colored in the first
Hey.
chapter of the famous Hajime no Ippo has decided to upload the colored version on Manga Plus creators because he couldn't upload it on Manga Death Decks, right? Which is a
I
very
don't know
well
what this
known
guy's talking about.
Manga. Fuck Manga Plus.
Yeah, right.
Fuck you too, bro. What'd they do to you, man? You watch the video, you find out.
high-level character in the company was bragging about, regardless of whether America stays a democracy or not, the insurance company, specifically theirs, had a plan to continue to extract money from people. They're like a parasite that spreads, a zombie that can't quit eating. The top brass was making absolute moolah. They would want for nothing. Their great-grandchildren would want for nothing, even if they quit
I'm gonna
tomorrow.
grab a drink before I light
And
that
the
other bad boy
islands
up
are
and you hit a
always
real blunt,
expanding.
dog.
Oh, that
The
shitty
company.
thing over
There's no
there?
such
Yeah,
thing
sit it there
as
and put some hair on your nuts,
having
bro.
enough.
That shit.
Even
That
in a
shit, shit's
drastic
that shit,
scenario
dog.
where for some reason our country just completely crumples in on itself, there's
That
still going to be
shitty.
good enough for you.
Got that shitty.
Bro, you know who the shitty boys are?
Nah,
Huh?
nah.
You
I
know
work
anything
for
about
one of America's largest
what are they called?
segregation law firms.
Scam
The
rap?
uniform covers a cost for you. They can make somebody else responsible for
Well,
repaying.
there's a
This
subgenre
is
of
where
rap called
insurance
scam
companies
rap,
comes in.
where it's like scammers and shit.
My job was to
You know, like
help
that
people
Postman Dev and all that
and
shit.
harass them for
Yeah,
money.
so
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
When
the
they find
scam
you
rap.
at best and
right?
harass you at
They
worst.
got the one dude that did it about stealing
I sat at my
cars and
desk
shit.
looking.
Yeah, so
I'm
like
literally
there's
just a debt collector.
There's a group
collectors were
of artists. It's like 3 guys that were like some friends or whatever. They grew up in like New York or whatever. And I guess instead of trapping, these guys were really into like scamming, you know. So they started doing a scam rap, and they call themselves the Shitty Boys.
treating the people that they were calling as something to extract from, not seeing them as other humans. I saw a lot of abuse, verbal abuse of course, not having any kind of empathy for anybody's lifestyles or situations. We had a system of notes that would show what was discussed with the claimant previously. So there was this lady that had a lot of notes that, like, she's lying, she keeps giving a sob story. I spoke with this lady and was giving her the general spiel. And she cut me off and she said, I don't know why you guys keep calling me. I'm telling you, I'm in hospice. I'm dying. Like, I am in my sister's living room, in a medical bed. I am dying. Her sister got on and just, screaming, like, just please leave her alone. I didn't know what to do with myself because what do you say to somebody like that? It was probably one of the lowest points of my life. I would see frequently people were bringing in like $30,000 a week. There's hundreds of people working for this company.
673 cars.
16 years. She was one of those
133 opportunities.
Thousands, tens of thousands of dollars were being brought in.
5 sold for a whopping 3.75%. Devin sent 79.
I mean, it's not like anybody was really expecting her to sell like 20 or 30, but god damn. And it's the thing that's like, it'd be one thing if it was like every now and then, or like maybe one day or something like that out the week, but it's like almost every day for her. That's the crazy part.
Woman. We are incentivized.
It's like her best days is normally like the other guy's normal day.
Without letting them know, we had full reign on adjusting what they would actually have to pay if they settled. We're paid on commission through a fee structure. So if they are making good faith payments, say $250 every 2 weeks or $250 a month, we would get 15 to
unless
20%
like that, I was
of
making
that
20
as a
bucks
fee.
an hour and I could pay my bills
If
still.
we were to settle a lower amount for them, we would get less in fees, and fees are what our commission is based on. The system was set up that if we showed any kind of humanity to these people, we were screwing ourselves over, and I can't tell you how many times I got in trouble for just trying to be a decent person. We are supposed to be doing this by the book. A lot of these cases, when people don't exchange their insurances at the time of the wreck because they're like, oh, it's fine, there's like barely a dent, my insurance will cover it. Later, when the insurance company hunts them down because they don't know that that person has insurance, that's why they're supposed to be getting their insurance. Like, that's the first thing we're supposed to check for with each call, because they might have insurance and not be on hook for any of this. So a colleague saw me in the middle of a call, told me to pause the call, asked me what I was doing there, and said I was not there for customer service. He pointed out the fact that I am poor, and he said if I were you, I would focus on winning and not on making sure that these people have insurance or not. You need to get money. You don't need to get their insurance. That was a part of the job description, things we were trained on. If they had insurance, we were supposed to collect the data on that. And when the people that have that responsibility to do their work correctly are in it just for the greed and are completely skipping out on certain steps, lives are needlessly ruined. We would call you sometimes multiple times a week until we got the money. Just completely would not stop. I experienced one with a lady. It was a flood damage in the apartment downstairs. And the lady actually did have proof that it wasn't even her fault, but we were still pursuing her. And I tried to send it back to where we double check things. And they're like, no, she's guilty. And I'm like, no, look at the paperwork. She has clear proof that it was actually the apartment of her.
In your blood too, man.
We used a program to pull up dossiers on people. So if you had the lockup locker having the same phone number as the claimant used to have, if you worked with them as spouses, we might call you. Basically keep chipping away until we find the claimant. One of my co-workers called up a wife of a man that was a truck driver. He owed roughly $55,000, and this lady was completely blindsided about this. She didn't even know he had been in a wreck. As she is becoming more and more panicked, the reality of the situation settling in, he's becoming more and more chipper, and he actually turned around and high-fived her and she started to cry. Some of the techniques I witnessed keep...
Like, how do you even get a job as doing some shit like this? Like, selling insurance or, like, getting paid off for fucking people over on insurance policies or whatever the fuck. So I can imagine you could probably get, like, a bonus for saving them from having to pay somebody.
I mean, I'm sure. Otherwise, nobody would do that shit.
People using to
But
harass
at the same time, it's like you just said, how do you
one
get into it?
person was very misogynistic towards women, would talk down to them, call them baby girl. Another person would spend his mornings conversing about different ways to lie. They would find loopholes and say this person might live in a state that they can't have their driver's license taken from them, but we could still threaten that maybe because maybe the state might change their mind one day and make it legal. It was quite blatantly a lie, and we were encouraged to tell that lie. One of the tactics we were supposed to use on people that said, I don't have any money, tell them, hey, do you smoke? Quit smoking. Different things that we're supposed to use as examples of things that they should put in their own life so they can pay us money. We were told to tell them, take out some credit cards, high interest loans. You know, that's a cycle. Once you start borrowing from one high interest thing to another thing like that, like, you're in a bad way. It's an endless loop of misery. This experience was borrowing just a cold splash of water in regards to what I thought our society was capable of. And then go to lunch and have a coffee and just happily talk about something.
You got a little book there you gotta read, you know. Like,
we were completely incentivized towards
a lot of emotions you're dealing with.
Things like this are one of the big reasons why people hate insurance companies. This company has absolutely ruined
that work worn off on you.
100%
Can I ask you
completely
this?
undeniable.
In passion.
When I think back to that lady who was dying,
in the moment,
she didn't deserve this.
Or is it just the glow?
Nobody deserves
or you could be constipated. I don't know.
something like this.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Every screen you look at is something horrible. I would see roughly 80 to 100 child sexual abuse material images, or if it's on call, I could be seeing from 10 to 10,000 in a day.
Shit, we're talking about fucking insurance and shit to this motherfucker talking about diaper snippers.
Hey, yo.
Hey, he's what I'm talking about this shit.
Hey, yo.
Yeah.
Members only. The fuck?
Yeah, right. Like, I don't know what the hell that means.
Get bent, bro.
There is a pretty short list of movies that can alter the quality of my day, not because they're bad and I'm upset that I watched them, but because they're just really upsetting.
I don't know, I like
The
fucked up movies.
2024 film The Coffee Table is absolutely
Come on, man.
one that I would
have
add onto
bad
that
dreams
list.
tonight,
Oftentimes
man.
of movies that you'll find on the
fuck?
list of the most disturbing things I've ever watched,
I don't care.
you're gonna find things that rely really heavily on being
I've seen that one.
super graphic or
Seen that
pummeling
one.
you over and over with horrible subject matter, and they often rely
I've
on
seen
the
that one.
visual of something horrific to hit the notes
There's
that they want
almost,
to.
there's
The thing
pretty
about
much
The Coffee Table is that it
not really a movie you could show me that's quote unquote illegal to watch that I have not seen. Like, I've seen all the classics.
Classic.
Cannibal Holocaust, like the one he just flashed. You know when that one was filmed? You know, I think it was like the 80s or some shit like that. Like, did you know that they were gonna arrest the director because they actually believed the cast had gotten eaten because he paid the cast to go into hiding as the film after they were done filming the movie, so that way people would exactly, and then they didn't come back out until he went into court and everything, and
That's crazy.
exactly, like it was almost so realistic and everything, and like pretty much shit like that does happen, and it is very believable.
I ain't never watched no, like,
We'll watch Cannibal Holocaust, bro. When we're done with this stream, we'll watch it. It's pretty interesting, bro. They kill a turtle and eat it.
what's up?
Yeah, dude. Like, there's some fucked up scenes in it though, which kind of lead to almost the justification of them all getting eaten alive. You know what I'm saying? But I
doesn't
don't think
do
everybody in
any
that
of
movie
that.
deserved to get murdered.
There is very little in the way of graphic material in this movie, but it's one of the most difficult things I have ever sat through. My dog was just standing at the door of the studio looking at the bunny rabbit in a very not way that I want way. I don't want her to eat the bunny rabbit, man. This movie lasers in on forcing you to sit in the aftermath of something horrible that happens in a split second and then watch as the rest of the day unfolds. It's horror in the mundane
Which
and the
one you
panicked
talking about?
secrecy of what happened, and it's a really hard watch.
I don't know what this movie is.
So much so, in fact, that after watching it for the first time, I told myself I would never watch it again. I was angry at the people who made it, and I was angry at Alex from Beyond the Void Horror Podcast for recommending it to me. So I called him right away, and we talked about it. And as I talked about the movie and began to cool off, I started to get upset
It's
for
apparently
another
a comedy.
reason. The Coffee Table is a very, very well-made movie, and when I realized that, my heart began to sink because I knew it was going to be another one of those situations where it would just linger in the back of my head. These ultra-disturbing movies are oftentimes easy to disregard because they're trying way too hard to be edgy and in the process forget to make an actual movie, but this one doesn't grant you that. And by the end of our conversation, I was pissed that it was actually well made. Show some love to my boy Alex, by the way. He makes some fantastic videos and has seen more movies than I think anyone else I know. Now, this movie is pitched as a very dark comedy, and the first go around, I had absolutely no idea where the hell the humor was supposed to be. It wasn't until I decided I was going to make this video and begrudgingly rewatch the movie that I saw the humorous side of The Coffee Table, which is pretty much entirely tied into the irony of the dialogue. I did chuckle a couple of times on my second viewing, which surprised me because I was nothing but upset the first time, but you're going to have to embrace the darkest pits of your humor if you want to tap into that side of things. I'm going to warn you now before I get into it, this movie is extremely disturbing and completely ruined my day. And I thought I'd be fine the second go around, but I absolutely wasn't. I was on the brink of a panic attack for the last 10 minutes the first time I saw the movie, so I just want to be very clear about that before giving this thing its flowers that I wish it didn't deserve.
Ay, me encantaría ver qué cara se te ha puesto. Ay.
Hey, so remember that intro where I talked about how disturbing this movie is? The whole thing was a lie. The coffee table opens with the wonder of childbirth and an overjoyed mother seeing her baby for the first time, which she later says was a moment unlike any other, where the love she felt for her baby was instantly more intense than any she had felt before. It's truly beautiful. The only stain on the lives of this happily married couple is that Jesus has absolutely horrendous taste in furniture. Lying. I wish I could just be silly like this for the whole video to help me cut my way through talking about this thing. But the reality is that there actually is a lot of really interesting material to talk about here, and I can't pretend anymore. This movie is essentially designed to be an hour and a half of psychological torment, and one of the ways that it loves to do that is by really focusing on how happy Maria is to finally have a child. We learn that her and Jesus have been trying for a long time. She's undergone 2 years of treatment to help her along the way in getting pregnant, and this is finally her being able to fulfill experiencing the thing that she credits with making existence worth it.
Me queda por existir.
Baby dies.
Solo por sentir todo lo que siento
Kill the
de...
baby with
The
that
other
last
thing that they
table
focus
or
on
something.
establishing is the tension between Maria and Jesus, because while she's been very focused on getting to this point in their lives, he seems to not have been quite as keen on the idea of having a baby, and so now they're in this position where they're bickering a lot over the decisions that are made in their relationship. I'm not sure why he wouldn't air these grievances during the 2 years that she was undergoing treatment for this, but we don't see any of that stage of
Probably
the
thought it was
relationship.
never
There
gonna
isn't much
happen.
information given there, so I don't want to make any assumptions about the dynamic. It's really not the point of the movie anyway. What matters is that Jesus feels like he doesn't have any agency in his life at this point, and so they agree that he can choose the coffee table that they'll get for their place. The salesman who sells them the table is the most outwardly humorous part of the movie. He's a very stereotypical sleazy salesman who makes impossible claims and talks about how this is the best thing you're gonna get, but he doesn't have one himself, of course. At least he is honest with Jesus after Maria leaves, though.
Pero siento usted yo, sinceramente. ¿Le gusta la mesita?
No. Maria really hates the table, and she should, but they did agree that Jesus could pick it, and this is one of those moments that shows early on that this is actually a quite well thought out script. It's certainly possible that I'm imposing my own tastes here, but this table is so fucking ugly that part of me thinks Jesus literally only bought it out of spite because Maria hated it so much.
Probably
This is the
did.
most gaudy looking piece of shit I've ever seen. It doesn't even remotely fit anything else in their flat, and it's clearly being oversold by someone who had it in their warehouse for way too long because nobody wants it, and he's trying to offload it as quickly as possible. It's such a clear red flag, but Jesus still goes for it even after the salesman admits what he actually thinks, so it seems to me that his sole reason for buying it was so that Maria would have to see something in the middle of the living room every day that she absolutely hated. There is a lot of really great stuff here. One of the
So
big
petty.
ones being how when the salesman is trying to strengthen his pitch, he says that the glass is unbreakable and talks about things that can break. And when he mentions a marriage, we see the reflection of Jesus and Maria in the glass on the table, which is a fucking fantastic bit of visual storytelling, because of course, this dude is full of shit and the glass can break, so this is foreshadowing how their lives are about to shatter when they bring this thing into their home. It's also the first scene where we get a hint at the approach to humor here, which is very focused on irony or things along that line.
Y les aseguro que esta mesa, por diseño y por su nivel, les va a cambiar la vida a mejor.
Will change
Les va a
your life for
aportar
the better.
felicidad al hogar.
Beg to differ. The other thing that's set up before, we'll get to that, is a young neighbor who is absolutely in love with Jesus and is convinced that he loves her too and just won't admit it. Now this is a really weird plot point, and it can feel sort of peripheral to a story that is otherwise completely zeroed in on its concept. But don't worry, it exists entirely to add more stress, misery, and trauma into the final act. That is literally the entire reason it's here, so we'll talk more about it when we get to the ending. Okay, I guess I can't delay any longer. Let's Time to get to the catalytic event that sets the stage for the rest of this lovely day. After bickering back and forth for a while, Maria goes to run out to the store to pick up some food and drink because Jesus' brother is coming later that day with his new girlfriend. And while she's out, Jesus is hanging with Cayetano, trying to help him stop crying, but he's just being a dick about it.
Que le han puesto un nombre muy feo y por eso llora.
I don't know if Jesus is a fucking terrible asshole, or if the day we see him on is just a particularly bad one, but this dude just cannot stop. The naming of their child is once again something that's meant to show how he feels like he's not given any control over his life, and that's meant to really elevate the misery when the one thing he does choose winds up doing this.
Fucking baby, dude.
At least he stopped crying. Yeah, this is a batshit insane moment, and it comes only 20 minutes into the movie. I knew absolutely nothing going in, aside from Alex telling me that it was extremely disturbing. And you're going to know pretty quickly if this is something that you want to stick around for. Obviously, you know that something is going to go wrong, and I think the assumption for a setup like this, at least for me, is that the table is going to have a curse on it and bring some evil entity into their home, or it's going to be like a No Country for Old Men scenario where it's actually stolen and then some bad people come after it. But this is not that kind of movie. There is nothing supernatural here. You don't see a single death in the entire movie. It's all just torture having to sit through the hours following something like this. The moment itself is an absolute gut punch, obviously because of the subject matter of what happened, where
that's a
it's
fucking
placed in the
nightmare,
movie
bro.
so early on, and also because of how well they use sound to tell you what happened, instead of relying on showing the visual of it, which would probably make this feel a lot more edgelordy and uninteresting. The immediate cessation of the baby's cries after you hear the glass shatter, the utter silence from Jesus, and the way the music just carries on like nothing happened is an absolutely haunting way to start things off. They really hold on Jesus' stunned panic as his brain pushes back what just happened, cutting back and forth between Maria at the store, all happy-go-lucky, talking to her friend about how over the moon she is to finally be a mother, and then to Jesus just frozen in the moment. It's obviously a very upsetting sequence, and they do a good job of contrasting the feeling of something very mundane and everyday, like talking to your friend at the store, with the world-shattering nightmare that Jesus has just found himself in. I do really appreciate how well this movie plays with that sort of thing, contrasting normalcy with an upended life. It's all made so much worse when Maria puts Jesus on the phone with her friend, who begins asking gleefully how Jesus is enjoying being a father. Poor note. That's what this whole movie is. Jesus hangs up, and when Maria calls back, she asks, "Did it cut off?" Cheeky fucking writer. I want to go through and look at some of the examples of the humor, because I was so upset by this movie the first go around that I didn't even notice them or register them as humor. One comes here when there's an announcement on the store loudspeaker advertising where to find super absorbent towels. If you're going to watch this movie and you find yourself having a hard time with it, I recommend trying to pay attention to that sort of thing to help pull you through, because as much as I hate to say it, there are a few things that made me laugh on my second watch. Maria, you might want to pick some of those up. When Jesus' brother arrives with his girlfriend, she's wearing this bright pink cheery shirt that says "No Bad Days." And honestly, I would probably kill her right then and there if this was me. They make sure to get really close up on a bottle of red wine being popped open and poured into a glass, which Jesus is clearly not loving drinking because of what that visual is probably reminding him of. And this is one of those things where I did notice the parallel with what happened to Cayetano, but I found it more torturous than funny. Perhaps the most uncomfortable example of this sort of thing is when Maria returns home and Jesus is desperately trying to cover things up, so he says he broke the table and cut his hand in the glass, and Cayetano is sleeping in his crib, but it took a lot to get him down so she doesn't go check on him. Because she hated that ugly fucking table and the salesman really pushed that it was completely unbreakable, Maria just starts cackling at the irony of the situation. The life savings spent on cigarettes makes it sound like it's taunting Jesus intentionally, and as she laughs, she keeps saying things like, "I would have loved to see the moment it broke," or "I'd give anything to have seen it." Anything? That's the thing here. You need to be able to tap into a side of yourself that can find humor in the utmost misfortune of this fella, There's moments like this when his brother jokingly punches him with a Hulk glove, which probably felt like getting hit by a freight train in the state that he's in. I would certainly not go so far as to say that this is a funny movie, but I did find myself appreciating the ironic double entendres that they made use of. It's a fun part of the script that makes you want to really pay attention to what's being said, and with a movie that doesn't expand much beyond its premise, those kinds of things are very important for keeping it interesting. The only thing that is outwardly funny to me is the salesman, because the scene where they buy the cable is the last that we see of him. Well, Jesus is setting it up, he notices that there's a screw missing that's important for holding on the glass, and so he calls him to bring it to him, and the salesman delivers it himself. By the way, his name is also Cayetano. There's something that seems to be a constant through line in this movie. Everyone wants to fuck Jesus. That weird neighbor seems to believe they're destined lovers, and this dude also seems to be pretty into him. He's played by Eduardo Antuna, and this dude does such a good job of playing this sort of lonely, desperate guy who really wants to win over Jesus and make a friend out of him, or something more. It's a little ambiguous.
Me ha caído muy bien. No sé. Yo creo que tenemos ese feeling.
He brings along a contest form for him to potentially win a luxury fan, but I have a feeling that Jesus really isn't in the market for anything with blades on it at the moment. I think Jesus would probably rival a Terrifier movie if he got his hands on a fan. What I really like, though, is this moment where Cayetano hands him the screw that was missing, and we get this close-up shot of it before Jesus quickly pockets it. Like, he can't bear to look at the thing. We don't know exactly what happened to cause the accident since it was off-screen, but we do know that the table wasn't fully secured because it was missing this apparently essential screw. So Jesus seeing this little thing is yet another taunting piece of reality, saying that something so insignificant as a little screw played a part in utterly destroying his life. There's something that I've always found to be one of the most effective points of focus when you want to make a scene disturbing, and that's not to focus on the graphic nature of what happened, but instead the denial of reality and the panicked realization that comes when someone has a split-second moment that changes everything for them. It's easy to make something disturbing if you focus on just showing the most fucked up shit you possibly can. But the coffee table takes an entirely different approach and decides to see what happens if you're forced to sit in the hours following something like this. And that concept alone is something that I find to be a really interesting angle. Once Jesus is finally able to rip himself out of the initial realization, we see him sort of robotically going through the motions of things that show him trying to hold on to the now long-gone sense of normalcy. Like, his mind thinks that he can maybe manifest the world back to the way it was if he carries on doing as he otherwise would. The most upsetting example of this is when he changes Cayetano's diaper. We've seen that Jesus has been very combative with Maria surrounding the child, and just a moment before everything fell apart, he was talking about how awful the name that Maria chose is, and you can feel here how he's just desperately trying to make up for how he's been acting by trying to care for Cayetano. And now we're frozen in time here, waiting to see what the hell he's going to do, because Maria is coming home soon. And here's another example of this movie showing a pretty honest reflection of the flawed way that the human mind can work when in such a panicked and surreal state. Obviously, there's no way to hide this. A headless baby is something that is generally noticed for those who look at said baby. And it's fairly likely that Maria will, at some point in the future, want to look at her baby and would more than likely notice the absence of a fairly important asset. She is going to find out, it is going to be discovered, and yet Jesus decides to try and cover it up anyway, doing his best to clean things up and putting the now slightly less heavy Cayetano into his crib. Not the ideal weight loss program, but it'll do in a jiffy. He's really not thinking here. It's just his brain taking over control and running on autopilot to try and delay the inevitable and hide from what happened. There's no thought put into the fact that by the end of the day, Maria will absolutely know. All that matters is that she doesn't know the moment she gets home, because in a traumatic situation like this, there often isn't much awareness of the fact that anything exists beyond the standing moment. His world has ended, so to him, now is the only real thing. So he's trying to make now look as inconspicuous as possible. Now, overall, this is a well-crafted movie, but there is one moment where my ability to suspend disbelief is stretched a bit too far, and it takes me out of the otherwise very realistic
he's just covered in blood, and people
Jesus is needing to clean up as much of the blood as he can, but he doesn't have the supplies that he needs, so like he's baking a cake and needs to borrow a cup of flour, he goes to that batshit neighbor's place and asks for supplies. Here's the issue that I have with this. Yes, this movie has some cartoony characters and sillier moments, but the staining on his shirt absolutely could not pass for red paint. And if someone shows up at your door looking like this and asking for those kinds of supplies, all I can say is that if you often find yourself needing to get away with murder, move into this apartment building because the tenants are beautifully oblivious. It's the only moment of the movie where I felt like it went too far with the silliness and took me out of things. Otherwise, though, this whole section of the movie is really
That's fucking
well
great.
done. Once Maria gets home, the remainder of the movie is just this sickening, tension-filled dread fest that is the definition of a nail-biter because of how potent that feeling of a ticking time bomb is. All of these little things keep happening, like Maria almost going into the room when she hears dripping on the baby monitor and Jesus has to quickly step in to make sure she doesn't go because he knows what that dripping is. Or when Jesus' brother and his girlfriend want to say hi to the baby and give him presents. It's a really unique use of tension because it's not like we're on the edge of our seats waiting for some big scare to come. It's just this knife's edge of panic watching as people come so close to seeing something that will shred their world into pieces. Of course, on top of how tense it is, it's also insanely tragic and upsetting. What I really appreciate about the way that this is displayed is that it's not just a bunch of scenes of him looking sad or acting like he's hiding something. They do a really good job of showing how utterly overwhelmed his nervous system is and how everything in the world has transformed into a disgusting reminder of what happened. The wine feels like drinking blood. The food that Maria cooked, he can only see as bits of raw meat or like he's chewing on broken, bloody glass. The sounds of knives and forks are blisteringly loud and dizzying. Looking around the dinner table at his family eating is like a high-octane action movie because of how amped up and disconnected his mind is. It's a very good way of reflecting the state of mind you'd probably be in this situation. And I don't know if I ever needed that realistically recreated. I'm just being honest. As this grueling runtime draws to a close, you know, any minute now, the discovery is going to be made. This is honestly the thing that could make or break the entire movie. Jesus winds up needing to leave the table because he's so overwhelmed, and his brother overhears him leaving a goodbye message for Maria, talking about how he can't face her and see the truth that he's been hiding all day, destroy her.
Neither one, brother. I'm not too interested in stuff like that. I don't even know what they are. So.
It's a really fucking tragic and upsetting scene because the things he's saying feels just way too real. The way he words this message feels like someone who's been confronted with such a distorted reality and simply cannot go through seeing what his life will be like when she finds out. He begs to be forgiven, he apologizes over and over again.
No, I'm just saying, like,
leaving her to deal with it on her own. It's really tough to get through. Because he was overheard, his brother now knows why he's been acting so strangely all day. Feels that he needs to see Cayetano to believe that Jesus is telling him. Now this next little while almost pushed me to my limit. I think it is the closest I've ever been to tapping out of a movie in my adult life because the sense of dreadful panic is way, way too palpable. Carlos and Jesus sit in the room for a while talking over the situation, and Carlos desperately wants to find a way to make sure that Maria doesn't see her baby, although he's well aware they've got only about 10 minutes before she does because she has to feed him. Now, the thing that I haven't really talked about much is that while Cayetano's body is in his crib, his head is not. It rolled under a chair when the accident happened, and Jesus couldn't bring himself to move it. This is where the movie built itself up to a crescendo, where all of the dread, tragedy, and horribleness of the story all come together. With Carlos and Jesus going to tell Maria about what happened, the next door neighbor arriving to tell Maria that her and Jesus are in love, and she brings her dog along who starts sniffing under the chair. Carlos, knowing what's under there now, goes and grabs it and tries to hide it from Maria, begging her to leave because while the discovery is unavoidable, he doesn't want her to see it. It's like, I guess, shattering. It's a shattering sequence that pushes the sense of panic to its absolute limit, with Maria realizing that something is terribly wrong. Carlos doing his damn best to protect her from what he's holding in his arms, Jesus breaking down on the other side of the room and becoming catatonic, unable to come any closer, and while it all happens, we also have the neighbor implying that Jesus is a PDF file. I hate having to do that, by the way. I know that you hate hearing it. I hate saying it even more, but I have to abide
This is what I meant when I said the entire point of her inclusion was to make the movie even more miserable. It literally just feels like it was added for another layer of confusion and dread in the climax, and it also allowed the director to have a child be absolutely traumatized when she sees what's in Carlos's hands. It's just sensory overload with dizzying camera work and people talking over each other and Christina throwing up. But I will say, one thing that I find to be an interesting idea is that Maria knew pretty much as soon as she got home that something was wrong. Her laughter is so over the top and goes on for so long that it becomes cartoonish, which isn't necessarily out of line with the way that this movie likes to handle its tormenting humor, but it does raise an interesting perspective that throughout the entire movie, she knows that something happened with Cayetano, but her mind is absolutely unwilling to face the reality of that. The reason that I feel like it's possible is because her reaction at the end here feels less like someone being blindsided by this sort of realization, and more like someone being forced to face a fact that they've been hiding from. Her behavior sometimes seems like there's an underlying terror that if she even somewhat acknowledges or allows herself to suspect that something is wrong, that it'll become a reality, so she just carries on as if she doesn't have any inkling. I'm not certain about this, but I do find it to be an interesting way of looking at the movie and adds another human layer to her character. Before we get to the ending, I need to praise the actors in this movie because the performances here are honestly staggeringly good. David Perea, in the lead role as Jesus, nails everything the character asks of him, from the sort of spiteful, sarcastic guy we see at the beginning of the movie to the absolutely broken man that we see for the majority of it. The scene where he stops Maria and talks to her about how much she means to him and how sorry he is for behaving the way he has is heartbreaking because you can see how he's trying to hold on to whatever he can and naively feeling that perhaps if he can be sweet and kind like this, he can fix it all. But of course, he knows that's not possible, and the hopelessness here is tangible. It also really sucks that this is what it took for him to have that moment with Maria. Estefania de los Santos as Maria also plays her character perfectly, and maybe the highlight of the whole movie, if I'm being honest. I've tried to do about 7 takes of this name, and I'm trying to do it in my best Spanish accent, but I can't do it, so I'm sorry. Josep Maria Riera as Carlos really shines during that last section once he finds out what's going on, especially during the moment where he's trying to protect Maria from seeing what happened, but knowing that she will eventually find out about it. Claudia Riera as Christina doesn't stand out as much, but her role does serve its purpose of showing the contrasting situation where Jesus and Maria have just lost their child, while Carlos and Christina make the announcement that they're having a baby. Her character is quite a bit younger than the others, and there's a good generational contrast that she brings. The performances all around are really fantastic, which is great for the movie, of course, but it kind of sucks because it can make certain moments feel way too real. I don't think I ever wanted this situation portrayed in such an honest way. Thank you very much. I will say, at least after all of this, there's an ending that's about as happy as you can get from this situation. When Maria finds out what happened, of course, she's broken, but we skip many months ahead and find that this absolute tragedy that occurred actually led to Jesus and Maria becoming closer as they bonded in the horror of it all. And they've got another child on the way. Kidding, of course, they both throw themselves off the balcony, Maria doing so while holding Cayetano's head. Christina goes to a hospital, the neighbor has a massive panic attack, and Carlos is left utterly traumatized and in shock, with the only thing he's able to say being the coffee table. It's fucking cheery, isn't it? I think if you're going to talk about disturbing movies that have come out in the last few years,
so she cut off her husband's head and jumped out of the building. This conversation as one of the better ones, because it focuses on actually crafting a psychological story rather than an overly graphic one. It's very well executed, the actors are fantastic, and it achieves its goals wonderfully, and I hate that. Here's the thing though, for me, if I'm going to sit through something this grueling and upsetting, I want some sort of takeaway that gives the experience more of a purpose than just how disturbing it is. I love confrontational stories, but I find myself wanting a bit more of a purpose to sitting down and watching something like this, beyond just going through psychological torment for an hour and a half, regardless of how well it's done. Speak No Evil, for example, while very upsetting, at least has that core theme of needing to be able to draw your boundaries and enforce them. Be willing to step up and stand your ground because there are people who will take advantage of those who let them. Since making that video, I've gotten tons of comments of people saying how unrealistic the characters in Speak No Evil are. I can tell you, those characters are not unrealistic. Some people freeze in moments like that.
and I found that commentary in Speak No Evil to be really effective. Cannibal Holocaust, well, it absolutely has some of that edgelord mentality and isn't actually a great exploration of the stuff that it explores, touches on how monstrous our quote-unquote civilized society is and how we treat less developed cultures as lesser while we commit atrocious acts. The message in the coffee table is, don't decapitate your baby with an ugly table. Which is definitely a good thing to try and keep in mind on a day-to-day basis, I suppose, but it's not enough substance for this movie to be something that I can actually say I love. To be very clear, I would take the coffee table over Cannibal Holocaust any day of the week, and I think it's a much better movie. It's an endurance test sort of just for the sake of being one, but it's done in a much better way than a lot of movies where the entire point is to put the viewer through hell, and a lot of the humor does land. And I will say that as I've been working on this video, the coffee table is starting to grow on me a lot more. There's just so much to chew on in this script beyond the surface level dread of the situation. The characters are so well realized and brought to life vividly by this great cast, and the humor is something I'm appreciating more and more. It's also shot with this wonderful confidence in how to tell your story through visuals and an artistic eye that shines through. It's a great movie, it's just not the thing that I'll find myself wanting to revisit all that often because it's so grueling and cruel. I'm very conflicted on it because there is something compelling about that, and I have a lot of respect for what they brought to the table here. I haven't really covered many disturbing movies on the channel, so I guess let me know if this is something you want to see more of. As for me, I'm going to go sit in the sunlight now and look at the pretty flowers because I need to feel better.
That's funny. He said, I'm going to go outside and look at the pretty flowers to feel better. Now look, it's fucking snowing, bro. Look at the sticks.
Fuck. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the video enough that you want to see more, and if that's the case, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell because YouTube can...
That was interesting. I don't know, I like horror movies and movies that make you uncomfortable sometimes and things that are strange and not that easy to stomach to watch sometimes.
I mean, some shit, like...
It's like, I'll ask people, I'm like, do you like movies or do you like films? Right? Do you know what the difference is?
Ain't like movie mainstream, and the film is like independent type shit.
Kind of, sort of.
Kind of do your own thing, or
yeah. A movie is something you watch. A film is something you experience. Yeah, that's what it means.
Like, you know, like some people, like when you see that movie scene where they get their throat slit.
Yeah.
Can't do it, bro.
Oh, dude, there's a movie actually I want to watch.
Chill, bro.
You ever heard of the Poughkeepsie Killer?
No.
You know, like serial killers?
I know some of them, but I ain't never heard of that.
Well, I'll see if we can watch it.